It's time to talk about episode 5 of the first season of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and this is a special one. For two reasons. One reason is pretty simple. This one has a framing story, again with Old Indy, which continues in the next episode, and so does the main story set in 1916. So this is more or less the first direct two-parter episode, I guess. But what's even more interesting, this episode, titled German East Africa, December 1916, was written by none other than Frank Darabont. Yep, that Frank Darabont. Oh, and the episode was directed by Carl Schulz and Simon Windsor. Okay, so let's get right into it with the framing story. We have Old Indy. Again, it's temporary times, 1992. He's in the hospital, why exactly we don't know, but a young girl is rushed in. She was apparently shot in a gang fight, and there is a fat guy sitting next to Indy, and he's basically like, yeah, you know what you gotta do, kids like that have no chance, like, who cares? They are not gonna become anything better or important anyway. And Old Indy is very insulted by that, so he begins to tell the story of fighting in German East Africa in 1916 during the First World War. And this story is pretty damn excellent. First off, we get action with Indy just in the war, surviving a gunshot to the chest, just with pure luck. And the natives think he's like a magic man who cannot die, which is kind of accurate. But one of Indy's superiors doesn't like him whatsoever, but they are teamed up because they have to get like a shipment of weapons and they have to travel down a river, and it's a very dangerous journey. And on the way, they find a village which has completely died out of a disease, and they find one living small child. And despite like the old guy who doesn't like Indy, he wants to leave the child behind because he could be a danger to, his men, because he could be carrying the disease. But one of the men decides to take the kid with him, and Indy has to make decisions and, decide what to do. And it's just a very simple, nice story with good character growth for Indy, and it's just a very fun episode. And of course, there's the little point of the story at the end and the framing device with Old Indy that the little kid that they found grows up to be someone of big importance. This episode is one of my absolute favorites. I like this a lot. The basic story, again, I think the acting is very good. I like the character growth for Indy, learning to deal with working in the military as a leader, having to make decisions, his friendship with the locals and them explaining what is actually going on with the world and stuff, because Indy is still pretty naive at this point. And the episode does a really great job showing just the misery of the situation, getting down this river, where they don't just have to deal with enemies, but also just diseases, and then there is problems within their own ranks and stuff. It's just very well done. So overall, this is a highlight episode. It's one of my absolute favorites and one that I would definitely recommend people to check out. And the good news is, like I said, this is basically the beginning of a two-parter. So the next episode, episode 6, the final episode of this first season of the show, is another highlight. I can say that much already. We will talk about that in a little bit more detail next time with the episode Congo, January 1917.